Hi Mike, great to meet up with you again yesterday and do some work on your game. Just a quick video to highlight some of the changes that were brought about through the discussions that we had. Discussed a number of things such as reducing the rate of closure on the club face, sort of through impact really P9, right arm parallel with the ground, head stays down a little bit too long, rate of closure gets a little bit too high. Does it have an impact on your shot pattern? Not necessarily. Certainly not the most pertinent piece to be working on, but it is something that occasionally could cause an errant shot, or if it's mistimed, could cause a number of errant shots. So it's something that you do want to tidy up, and something that you can tidy up pretty quickly, courtesy of that drill where you just hit some partial shots, turning and making sure that by the time the right arm gets parallel with the ground, the chest turns through 90 degrees, the belts turn through 90 degrees, and you've got 90% of your weight on your lead leg. The other feeling or thought is more sort of the Val, Stenson, Sorenstam with the head. The more you release the head, the more freedom the body has to turn, and therefore the slower the rate of closure on the club face, or the more gradual the rate of closure is on the club face. The biggest body of work we did was relating to the wrists and the way they work, particularly from the top of the backswing, P4, down to P5.5, just before delivery, and then the changes that you've then got to implement from that position into the hip, where the wrists go from cut to flat at speed over a very short period of time, which is historically what's maybe caused you a few issues. Talented enough to make it work. Could it be more efficient? Yes. If it's done in a more appropriate manner, which takes out a little bit of lag when viewed from face on, would that be a little bit more robust under pressure? Again, yes. So just going to play you through. Swing on the left was at the start of the session. Swing on the right was towards the end, when we were playing around with a few variables such as handle location, ball location, to give you a little bit different path, different face to path relationship. So on the right, the handle's a little bit higher, the ball's a little bit further back, not a lot, just a little bit, and we're sending it out with a little bit more of a penetrating draw. I'm just going to stop it at some key areas and we can have a little look at some differences. You see that the club starts to get in behind the hands a little bit sooner because of the height of the handle on the right, which is fine. As we approach the top, the playing references I've put on: red line through the hands, green line through the elbow, blue line through the shoulder. You'd expect to see a tournament player like yourself maybe get a little bit more onto that blue line or towards that blue line. If the arms were kept a little bit tighter on the torso, you would see a player more towards the green line. Not really right or wrong way of doing it, as long as you can retrace your steps during the downswing. So top of the backswing, relatively flat left wrist on both swings. The big thing then is what happens during the change of direction. On the left, we start to increase the amount of lag, which has an effect on the lead wrist, where we add some cupping to that lead wrist. On the right, the feeling is that the lead wrist stays flat, or there's a little bit of a bowing in there. The main checkpoint is that the shaft doesn't get any nearer to the right shoulder from P4 to P5. When you do that, you can see there's a slight shallowing of the shaft. If you use the green line as a reference, whenever the lead wrist is loading more, it's also cupping more, and therefore the shaft at P5 will hit a little bit higher up on the trail arm. So here we're below the right shoulder, it's not a problem, but we're not quite as below the right shoulder as we are here, so we're a little bit shallower, shallowing incrementally. Shaft starts to get onto the right forearm a little bit sooner. Lead wrist a little bit flatter, not as cupped, so that we don't have to go from cupped to flat from sort of P5.6 to 6.3. So there's quite a lot going on at that point in the swing. You can see the wrist angles start to come out, which is a natural progression. The wrist starts to flatten out. You can see on the left the sweet spot stays above that hand plane line. Whereas on the right, it's getting back onto it. So it's making the inward path a little bit more of a gradual progression, a little bit less of a dramatic flattening at speed over a short period of time. And as we get into impact, and through impact, we start to see the residue of that. The more dramatic flattening of the wrist results in a club that swings slightly out above the plane line, and we see the right arm straightening out very quickly. Whereas on the right, we see a club and a sweet spot that traces the blue plane line a little bit more, and the right arm starts to straighten in a little bit more gradual manner. Body opens up nicely, exits a fraction lower, rate of closure is very similar, so I haven't got a major problem with that. There was no quick hook on the left. The left hand image was a good shot, the right hand image was a good shot. More than capable of repeating that good shot that you make on the left. The swing on the right leaves a little bit less down to your timing. So really what we're looking to achieve long term is a swing that you can not necessarily just produce good shots with, but produce good shots with less effort, under greater pressure, and also have an understanding of how that shot's created or enhanced, courtesy of the variables like ball location, handle location, etc, etc. The feel from the top is an individual thing. The checkpoint is that the shaft doesn't get any closer to the right shoulder as per your images. We want that lead right wrist flat throughout the downswing so that we have to do less from 5.5 to 6.3, 6.5. That area of the swing, we want to be doing less. And the key to doing less at that area of the swing, as discussed, is to maintain that wrist condition that you've established beautifully at P4, top of the backswing, during the early part of the downswing. The more you lag, the more you have to cup. The more you cup, the more you've got to flatten out at speed. And the more you've got to do that, the more margin, or the less margin for error you have coming through the hit. Great work, look forward to doing it again. Like I say, it was a pleasure working with you, and I'm sure that you get a lot of good golf in the coming weeks.